Okay, looks like recording is back on. So we had a robust discussion in executive session. Would someone like to make a motion based on what we discussed?
Yes, Ellie, I move that we, based on the review that you presented to us in an executive session, I believe that we should, with all due haste, proceed with further research and planning for the contingency work that would be done, construction work that would be done in this year. Is there a second?
Second.
Got a couple of those. Discussion. Excellent. All in favor, raise your hand or say aye. Excellent.
Okay. Thank you all. All right, so moving on to section 8. Lynn, would you like to give the audit update?
Yeah, sure. So I literally read the audited report before we stepped into this meeting and need to read it a little more thoroughly the second time around, but we have an audited report view. So we have something to present to the governing board on Tuesday. And Bonnie is asking, when are we going to be ready to step into the 2024 audit? Ellie, you and I will talk because I think we want to be able to hand off the general ledger when we ask her to begin the work. I have no idea what the procedure is. We now have a finance committee. And typically an audit would go to the finance committee, protocol, but this is, I don't know, maybe the audit committee looks at this on Monday. Ellie, anybody have any thoughts here about this?
I agree with you. I think it is called out for the finance committee to review the audit. So we should definitely circulate this.
Yeah. And, there's a letter and it's a document from Bonnie that I haven't seen in an audit before because I haven't worked in organizations that had so much federal funding. So that's the letter, Ellie, that needs to go on our letterhead. I think that's, do you know what
Yeah, they should ask for grants confirmations of end of year grant balances from the VCBB. And so.
Two different things.
Two different
so one
things.
Is the representation letter.
Yes.
That is drafted. That just goes on Maple Broadband's
letterhead.
And gets returned, provided you're okay with all the representations that are made in there.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that is fairly standard in audit engagements to have something like that.
Yeah, and that's my question, Jeff, is that it looked like standard procedure. But that's something that needs to happen. And that was just a document I haven't come across in my professional career. But yeah, and then, we got a clean report. That's great.
Yep.
And then there were some findings. And those findings I can't speak to because I wasn't part of the organization then. So on Tuesday, if there are any questions about that, I'm kind of hoping that you can come to that meeting. And Ellie, you'll be there to address it. But if anybody asks me a question about that, I don't know how to respond to that.
Can you share that out so that I can read their findings? I'd love to just sort of see what she had to say.
It was
circulated to the.
Oh, okay.
Didn't I send it to the entire executive committee?
Yes.
Oh,
just before the call, I thought so. Yeah, I read through it.
I missed it. Sorry. Okay, I'll look. Yep, great.
So the good news is it is, a clean report. There's one finding of a material weakness, and that's really about the lack of properly capitalizing assets on a current basis. That's the way I read that statement.
Which we're sort of fixing now, right? I think.
Yeah, I actually read it a little differently, Jeff, but again, I read it for, I read it pretty quickly. She did bring up in a couple of places about the whole, how we capitalized assets.
Yep.
But then there was something about how we recorded grant income.
Right, materially misstated deferred revenue and grant revenue. So I think one of the adjustments she made was to take a hunk of funds and
Yeah.
call it deferred revenue, which I think is probably an education for Maple Broadband, right? The bookkeeper just
Yeah.
recognized it as revenue, period, the end, and it wasn't all earned. So part of it needed to be deferred.
Is that
Yeah,
because we
I think-
didn't spend it all? Was that the,
It's because so this is not a fixed amount subaward. This is, and because it's not a fixed amount subaward, it's technically on, we should only be recognizing revenue when we've incurred the expenses on a reimbursable basis, and that was not how
Right.
we were doing it. Interestingly, that's something else I've sent to the finance committee because we yeah, anyway, I don't want to get into this here, but I think for 2023 that is correct, but for 2024, we could probably have it changed to a fixed amount subaward if we wish. And I think if we are going down that route, we could probably speak to Bonnie to say, this is actually the way it's going to be, and it wasn't right at the time, but anyway, so.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we got a clean report. That's the most important
that's awesome.
part. And I just didn't know if Bonnie had talked to Sally, you or Ellie about that.
No.
Okay, so it was interesting that it was a finding, but there was no just, I wasn't aware of it. So anyway, I don't think it's a big deal. We got a clean report. That's the most important piece.
Yeah.
And then noted that they had to restate the opening balance because of how assets were capitalized. So.
Yep.
Anyway.
I was learning from 22.
Mhm.
Okay. All right. Anything else in the audit? I want to move through the
Thank
rest
you,
of this
Lynn.
so we can end on
Are
time.
we, so
Yes.
are we presenting this at the governing board meeting next week?
Yeah, I'd like
Yes.
to.
So are we gonna get a copy of that audit report to the governing board delegates before that?
I'll send it out as part of the board pack later this week. What I'm not clear on, because we haven't discussed it with the finance committee yet, is whether we're happy with it and we want to recommend that they adopt it, or whether we want to defer that for the next board meeting.
I think we ought to put it on the agenda for the finance committee, and if folks are comfortable, make a recommendation on Monday. Governing board meeting meets on Tuesday. That could work fine. To the extent members of the finance committee don't feel ready or don't feel prepared, we'll deal with that. But it's not that long. I read it in the time I had between you sending it and the meeting, and the conclusion is, okay, I've seen worse. That's pretty good audit. So.
Yep. Okay. I think that all works. So next on the agenda is the finance committee update. So just to recap, we did have our kickoff finance committee. Lynn was elected chair. Congratulations, Lynn. And it was mostly just an orientation meeting and bringing people up to speed and providing some context. I sent out a number of materials, and we have what we're going to do. The next meeting is obviously talk about the audit as just discussed. I want to talk about the fixed amount subaward, and then I want to talk about the materials presented and have people talk about additional work streams and prioritization of what the committee does. Steve?
I don't remember the total number of people that had been invited to that meeting, but I got the sense that there might be one or two that will not stick around because it's not really their cup of tea. Are all invitees in for the long haul, as far as you can tell?
It's hard to tell after one meeting.
Yeah.
No one's dropped off yet.
Yeah.
Okay.
We'll keep you posted. Okay. All right. So next up is the VCB revolving loan program. I don't have too much of an update on that right now, so I think we'll just skip over that one for now. The affordable long drop program, this one's in an interesting state because there's a request for applications posted on the VCB's website that states that on the 30th of May, applications open. Applications have not opened yet. And we received a mail saying it was going to be delayed, but there's been no official communications going to be delayed. At the moment, it is due on June 16th, so I'm going to be devoting some time in the next couple of days to be starting to work on that. I want to note that we have a call on Friday with NECA to talk through the questions that you guys had around them doing the income verifications. And Adam, for the low-income households, Adam Luigi's been doing a little bit of homework this side around what information is already available in Addison County. So I'm going to be applying more attention to that in the next few days, so that if it is not in fact delayed, I'm not scrambling with 2 days before to get that ready. Any questions on that? Okay. Parking lot. I had a question on the parking lot, which is the draft delegate participation policy. Is that ready to go back out to the governing board?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
I'll get that to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then the WCVT co-branding, we just had that discussion, so that's now been voted on, and I'll update that for the next one. Anything else in the parking lot anyone wants to talk about? Okay. Wow, now we're actually ahead of schedule. I have no other updates. Is there any other business anyone wants to discuss? Okay, well, hearing none, we can actually finish early. How do you like that? Our next meeting, so we are now on a regular 1st and 3rd of the month, unless there's like a holiday or whatever. So I'll be updating the invites and calendars accordingly. So our next meeting is 2 weeks from now, and yes, we have governing board next week. Sai.
I move that we adjourn.
All right. Thank you, guys. See you in 2 weeks' time. Have a good evening. Bye.
Good night, all.
Thank you. Thank you.